I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not worry about the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. I want to wish you a Happy New Year. And since it is a new year that we're discussing tonight, if you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you would know that the title of tonight's show is From Bad to Better. And the reason why is that at the start of every year, I give 2 shows which give the predictions for the whole year. And tonight's show is going to cover the new moons and the eclipses for all of 2016. And what I want to emphasize is how unusual this year will be. It will be a year of great social unrest and change. And the reason why is that we're having a triple eclipse this year. A triple eclipse occurs when there are 3 eclipses that occur one right after the other every 2 weeks. So they're all 2 weeks apart. And that triple eclipse is coming up between the middle of August and the middle of September. But in any year when there is a triple eclipse, the whole year is affected by great social unrest and change. Then there's only one planet that changes sign this year, and it is Jupiter. One of the major planets changing signs is Jupiter in Libra, and it will go into Libra on September 9th. But this is a year when war looms, and this can also be a year during the March eclipses when there can be pain, misery, and miracles that can happen all at once as the Middle East burns. So this is a year when we are going to have a lot going on, and we have to sort of be up for it and also be very, very careful as well, because we go from bad to better, and better doesn't really arrive until the fall after Jupiter goes into Libra. Okay, what does this mean to the month of January? Well, in January, there is a new moon on January 10th at 19 degrees of Capricorn, and there are 4 planets in Capricorn, and all 4 of those planets are trining a 5th planet in an earth sign, Jupiter in Virgo. And so that simply means, with the emphasis in the sturdy earth signs, that a group or somebody very high up that represents an old world order decides to really clamp down on things in order to ensure security and stability. And a power play sometime in the month of January is overwhelmingly successful. And the reason why it's so successful is because it's backed by the courts. And that is because Venus is joining Saturn in Sagittarius at that time, and it is right behind that new moon in Capricorn. So there's a whole lot of planets in close proximity to each other, and they're very favorable. And so we see that going on. At the same time, there can be quite an emphasis on finances and budgets. So we have to understand that we've really got to live within our means, and that's because people can't afford everything. So January is a time when we really get down to sort of the nitty-gritty and really have to pay attention to our budgets, because large corporations and government agencies cannot afford everything right now. So we'll have to be a little bit careful with that. What does it mean in February? Well, in February, there is a new moon on February 8th at 19 degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius rules freedom, and it rules the future. But freedom doesn't have a chance in February, and the reason why is that it is overrun by greed and war. Because in January, Mars went into Scorpio, and it is at home in the sign it rules. And Scorpio does rule war. It's also a fixed financial sign, so there's a lot of controversy about financing as well. But since Mars in Scorpio is squaring the new moon in Aquarius, that's why freedom doesn't have a chance, because a whole lot of people can be very greedy, or they can be quite willing to go to war because of greed or lack of resources. So that's too bad. Also, Venus will go into Capricorn, and because Venus and Pluto are together in Capricorn, it can mean the early loss or death of a loved one, which would be too bad. And also, this is a time when, since war is war is emphasized because Mars is in Scorpio, squaring that new moon in Aquarius, that cyber warfare can prevail. And you need to be very, very careful of any information that you have online that is confidential, because anything could happen with that. So you need to watch that as well. And so this is simply a time when I think that people are very on the verge of being very upset and sort of losing it. And since the future is ruled by Aquarius and it is Mars that is squaring it, our future can be in question because evil can advance through sudden strikes. Remember, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is the planet of sudden change. And so all of that can be happening in February. What does it mean and later on in the month of February, there is the possibility of some sort of rescue or great escape or even a pardon that could occur perhaps a little closer to the end of February. And there is also the possibility of some dreams coming true. So you do have something good to look forward to. All right, what does it mean in March? Well, in March, the spring eclipses occur, and they do represent a lot of problems. That's why this year we're going from bad to better. And that is because on March 9th, there is a new moon solar eclipse in Pisces, and that's at 19 degrees of Pisces. And this solar eclipse is being very harshly aspected by 7 planets in mutable signs that are all squaring and opposing each other. And for that reason, this particular eclipse represents charity and grief and extreme cruelty. And the reason why that all of that can be going on at once is because the Middle East is going to burn. And the reason why that's going to happen is because all 3 malefic planets are trining each other in the month of March. And that is because Mars has then moved into Sagittarius, joining Saturn there. Sagittarius rules the whole Middle East, and those are 2 very malefic planets, up to no good at all. And they are being trined by the 3rd malefic planet, Uranus in Aries. So with all 3 malefic planets that bring lots of trouble, trining each other in fire signs, I think that the Middle East is on fire at that time, and that can certainly bring grief and extreme cruelty. Yet in the midst of all of that, a miracle could occur as well. And then 2 weeks later, on March 23rd, there is a lunar eclipse at 3 degrees of Libra. But peace, and Libra rules peace and partnership and compromise and negotiation, but peace doesn't have a chance then. And the reason why is there are 5 planets in cardinal signs all squaring and opposing each other. And so nobody is in agreement about anything then. And that simply means that there could be a real change in some sort of treaty or partnership or contract, and it could change and go in the wrong direction at that time. And there is also the possibility that all kinds of partnerships are subject to some sort of dissolution. So we have to be careful then, and you know, we have to be extremely careful in the month of March. There are not a lot of good things that are going to occur, and that is because those malefic planets are really up to no good, and there's nothing stopping them. And so evil advances in the month of March, and that is why we need to be very careful. What does it mean in April? Well, on April 7th, there is a new moon at 18 degrees of Aries, and oh boy, the pace really picks up because there are 6 planets in fire signs by then, and 4 of them are just in the sign of Aries. Well, Aries rules new beginnings, so there can be some really dynamic new beginning going on in anyone's life in the month of April. So if you're wanting to start over, that's a good month to do that. But the Middle East is still on fire by then, and that's because there are so many planets in the fire signs. And as the momentum builds up, people are going to rush forward, and with the rush being on, a lot of mistakes can be made. And so by the end of the month, there are actually 5 retrograde planets. Those are planets that are going backward on their orbit, and that's a lot of them. So by the end of the month, someone who had a very rapid head start at the start of the month may lose it by the end of the month. In other words, the reason why is that in the rush that everyone will be in, a lot of mistakes can be made, and then they will have to be subject to review. Particularly legalities will have to be subject to review as people move forward quickly, and perhaps not everything they're doing is legal. So we'll have to be careful about that. What does it mean in May? Well, on May 6th, there is a new moon at 17 degrees of Taurus, and there are 6 planets in the Earth signs during that new moon, and so they are all trining each other. Those are very good aspects, but the Earth signs are very practical and down to earth. So in the month of May, an awful lot of people are going to be working really hard, and they're going to be hitting hard as well. I mean, that's not a month for the faint-hearted at all. And so there is the possibility that stubborn unity prevails, that people who get together and they just say, you know, we're going to do this anyway, they're going to stick to that. And so we have to be a little bit careful. May would not be a good month to get in an argument with anybody, because I don't think there can be too many winners unless stubborn unity does prevail. But there may be a need for that by then. Because remember, we're going to be having trouble. Things are going to be sort of bad this spring, and we're going to have to respond to that and really dig in. There's also the possibility that a financial matter is going to have to be under review. And that is because it can simply be that the courts disagree with something, and they may play havoc with some sort of simple plan, but we have to allow for that as well, because remember, there are still a lot of planets in fire signs, but there's the grand trine in earth signs is going to hold in May, and that probably is going to be very constructive. It might not represent things that we all like, because we'll have to work harder then, but we perhaps are going to have a good reason for that as well. So I think that we'll make it through, but it's not going to be an easy month. Okay, what does it mean in June? Well, on June 5th, there is a new moon at 15 degrees of Gemini, and the Sun, the Moon, and Venus are all in Gemini. But because there are 7 planets, once again, in the mutable signs, all squaring and opposing each other, it simply means that good news has nowhere to go. And so young people are favored, and so are short journeys, though. And if you're planning on traveling this summer, I strongly advise you to take more money than you think you're going to need, because you will end up needing it. There could be delays, or details and costs will have to be reviewed, and you know, you won't get any good news. The costs are not going to go down. They probably will be going up. So you really do need to take extra money. Some short-term or temporary project in the month of June is going to be successful and is going to work out quite well. So you do have that to look forward to. And there is the possibility that there can be some sort of a pardon coming up. It could come even earlier in the spring, but there could be a pardon somewhere about that time. And that could be good as well. And there would be change in the air. It's going to be gradual, though. Okay, what does it mean in July? Well, in July, we come to America's finest hour, and that is because the new moon in July is very unusual, and that is because on July 4th, there is a new moon at 13 degrees of Cancer. Well, that's America's birthday. The 13th degree of Cancer is a critical degree, and so the sun or the moon at that degree, the strength of that is heightened even more. And then there is a grand trine in water signs that occurs under that Cancer new moon. And it's very unusual. Perhaps it's the only time in our lifetimes that this has really occurred, because what is so unusual is that all 3 water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, have their own ruler in the sign at the time of the Cancer new moon. That's why it's America's finest hour. The moon rules Cancer, and that's where the new moon is. It is trining Mars in Scorpio because it's gone retrograde, and Mars rules Scorpio. Those planets are trining Neptune in Pisces, and Neptune rules Pisces. But the reason why I don't think that the rulers of all three water signs have been in trine to each other under a new moon in our lifetimes is because Neptune hasn't been in Pisces for a couple of 100 years. It's been in Pisces for the last few years, meaning that it could have trined the moon, it could have trined Mars, but I don't think the rulers of all three water signs have been in that configuration at home in their own signs and all trining each other under a fabulous new moon at a critical degree. So this is going to be America's finest hour. If you have a birthday or you are a Cancer, you are going to have a great birthday this year. And there is also the possibility that this will be a time of great patriotism. And it will also be a time of healing, since all the water signs rule healing. And it will be a time of forgiveness and of justice, the things that the three water signs rule. And so this is going to be a time, I think, also when there can be a memorial that will bring us all together and unite us. And it is possible that tears will fall, but that they can bring relief and eventual joy as well. Okay, what does it mean in August? In August, we come to a time when the triple eclipse is going to start. But first of all, on August 2nd, there is a new moon at 11 degrees of Leo. And there are 6 planets in the fire signs at that time. So the Middle East heats up again. And this time around, things change a little bit because Leo is the sign of royalty. And Leos have a great deal of courage. And, you know, they like to have fun. They don't like to be at war all the time. And so although the Middle East does heat up again, I think that the leaders of royalty in the Middle East decide to be more agreeable, not only with each other, but also with the people that they rule. And so there can be a change that the Middle East can be on the verge of some sort of change at that time, which is good. Because 2 weeks later, on August 18th, there is a lunar eclipse, the first of the 3 eclipses that make up a triple eclipse that occur in 2016. And that lunar eclipse on August 18th is at 26 degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius rules freedom, doesn't it? But freedom isn't free. It costs something. And once again, in this sort of budget-conscious year that we will have, we can understand that not everyone's needs can be met. I mean, that's expensive. And so there will have to be some cost cutting by then in order to ensure a better future for people. And that simply means that with cost cutting and being a little bit more efficient, things can succeed, maybe on a smaller scale, but they can succeed at that time. Okay, what does it mean in September? Well, in September, there are 2 more eclipses. And so on September 1st, there is a solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Virgo. And Virgo rules efficiency and healthcare, and it rules service to others, and it also rules accounting. But that solar eclipse is somewhat harshly aspected, and so we can see that efficiency and reduced budgets they will mean that a plan has to be adjusted, or a plan has to be cut down to size. I mean, it's got to be something that is affordable. And so there can be even more efficiencies determined or cost cutting determined, and that will be in the end good for everyone, but it could be a little painful for people that have to cut their budgets as well. But that is something that we will have to do at that time, and that is because something just isn't affordable anymore, and everyone can understand that. That is why there has to be something that is cut down to size at that time. And then 2 weeks later, there is the 3rd eclipse in this triple eclipse, and it is on September 16th, and it is at 24 degrees of Pisces. And so this is a time when I think there is the possibility of some forgiveness of debt. And once again, if a pardon hasn't occurred by September, it probably could occur then as well. And that is because Pisces does rule forgiveness, but there is also the possibility of extreme cruelty going on somewhere. So we always have to be careful. Pisces is a double-bodied sign. And so this is a time when you still need to be on your guard, but it is a time when things calm down a little bit, because a week before this lunar eclipse on September 9th, Jupiter does change signs. It leaves Virgo and it goes into Libra, where Venus is at that time. And a Jupiter-Venus conjunction in any sign is a marriage sign, but they'll be both in Libra, and Venus rules Libra. And so this is a time when peace finally does have a chance, and when there can be some sort of compromise or truce or some sort of time out that is approved and agreed upon by people, and that is good. It's going to help people slow down a little bit and maybe catch their breath and certainly consider peace. And that is why the year is called From Bad to Better, because I think by the time Jupiter goes into Libra, we're going to be on the better part of that and sort of rising a little bit and getting over some of our troubles, which is wonderful. Okay, what does it mean in October? Well, in October, there are 2 new moons, because October is a very long month. So on October 1st, there is a new moon at 8 degrees of Libra. And remember, Jupiter is there, which is wonderful. But October is what I would call a law and order month, because the first new moon, the one in Libra on October 1st, does rule the law and partnership and peace and compromise and negotiation and diplomacy and contracts and treaties, and all of those are favored. But the second new moon in October, on October 30th, is at 8 degrees of Scorpio, and that rules justice. That's why the whole month the emphasis will be on law and order and sort of getting things back on track, which is good. And that is because Scorpio rules justice, and it is a fixed financial sign. So there will be an emphasis even on getting our budgets a little bit better balanced at that time. Because by October 30th, when the new moon occurs at 8 degrees of Scorpio, things could change. And the reason why, and that's at the near the end of the month, so it has an influence over the month of November as well. And that is because the rulers of Scorpio, Mars and Pluto, are together in Capricorn, and they are sextiling the new moon in Scorpio. Those 2 rulers rule different things, though. Yes, Mars does rule war, and because it's in a financial sign, there certainly could be trouble about finances as well. But Pluto rules something else. It rules the deep truth. And Scorpio does rule psychology. So Pluto rules, if something blows up in your life because you've been in denial or just kidding yourself about something, what you'll be left with is a grain of truth of what's really important for your survival. And Scorpio does rule survival. So Pluto rules nuclear weapons. And this is a time when there is the possibility that nuclear weapons could be used. And that is why, once again, we have to be on our guard. And the reason why nuclear weapons might be used around the end of October or going into November is because of greed, because somebody is really broke or has a really unbalanced budget. And so they can sort of put their finger on the trigger. And so we have to be careful about that as well. Okay, what does it mean in November? Well, on November 29th, there is a new moon at 8 degrees of Sagittarius, and there are a lot of planets in the fire signs, remember, because those planets in Sagittarius do trine Uranus in Aries. And so the pace picks up, and so does the momentum, and it's around Thanksgiving and the holidays anyway. And so I think that a lot of people can be very busy and traveling. And once again, if you're traveling this year, take more money than you think you're going to need, because I think you are going to need it due to higher costs or delays that you'll have to pay for while you're traveling. And as we near the end of the year, a lot of people are going to be moving back home. And when they do that, they will be treated very kindly. And so these could be people all over the world that have an opportunity to move back home. And they will They will be treated kindly because the new moon is in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius rules religion and philosophy and the higher mind and the courts. And there is the possibility that people are thinking that they have to do the right thing. And that's a way of going from bad to better too. So they're moving home, they're treated very kindly when they do that, and I think there can be some forgiveness going on as well, which is wonderful. Okay, what does it mean in December? Well, on December 29th, really getting close to the end of the year, there is a new moon at 8 degrees of Capricorn. And so there is quite an emphasis on business and government programs at that time, because that's what Capricorn rules, and it also rules your 10th house of career. So you could be doing a little career planning at the end of the year as well. But no matter what the business concerns are, there is a note of optimism as we end the year, and that is because Jupiter is in Libra, yes, and remember it does rule peace, so peace has a chance, I hope. And it is trining Venus in Aquarius, and Aquarius rules the future. So people are rather optimistic at the end of the year about their future, and I think that they are talking and thinking about making changes that can bring greater happiness. So that's wonderful. In this year, when we are going to be moving from bad to better, but it's a little bit like having to walk through fire. You've got to get through the bad first, and then you can't possibly let down your guard this year, because there is a triple eclipse, and in a year when triple eclipses occur, there is great social unrest and change. And one thing that happens right at the end of the year under this new moon in Capricorn is that Mars will have moved on into Pisces, where Neptune is. Remember, Pisces also rules hidden enemies, and it rules gases and chemicals and anything coming up from the ground. And so there is the possibility of, once again, extreme danger in the least likely places. And that could be occurring over the holidays or as we enter the new year as well. And it could also be extreme danger through prescriptions or any kind of drugs, because Pisces rules that as well. And Mars is up to no good when it is in Pisces. So you do have to be a little bit careful. But together we can make it through, okay? Because this is going to be a year of challenge and change, and I think if we stick together, we'll do just fine, particularly in the month of July, which will be America's finest hour. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can see this show and all the others if you want to subscribe to our website, starborninstitute.org. Bye.